The Pittsburgh Pirates have selected Paul Skenes number 1 overall in the MLB Draft.
You are Locked On Pirates, your daily Pittsburgh Pirates podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It may be the easiest prediction that your host, Ethan Smith of the Locked On Pirates podcast has ever made. Folks, hello. My name is Ethan Smith, your host of the Locked On Pirates podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network. And boy, oh boy, oh boy, let's clap it up for Ben Cherington. He didn't overthink it. The front office did not overthink the selection of Paul Skenes. Paul Skenes is a Pittsburgh Pirate. The Pittsburgh Pirates had the number 1 overall selection in the 2023 MLB Draft this Sunday evening. And there was a lot of talk. There was a lot of rumors. There was a lot of smoke. Were they going to go Paul Skenes? Were they going to try to save some money and go with a Max Clark or a Walker Jenkins? Were they going to go Dylan Cruz, Paul Skenes' teammate? Was Wyatt Langford an option? Well, now we know. Paul Skenes was the number 1 selection by the Pittsburgh Pirates, and no pressure, Paul Skenes, by the way, no pressure at all. But Ken Griffey Jr. announced the selection of Paul Skenes. Of course, we know Ken Griffey, huge player for the Seattle Mariners. I don't need to explain it. Now, Paul Skenes, we know the kid is awesome. He is, if you watched any LSU baseball when he was pitching, the kid is potentially a generational prospect. Now, do I want to go out and say that just yet? I'm not sure. But, of course, Paul Skenes has been dubbed the best pitching prospect in the MLB Draft since Steven Strasburg. I would go to say that the Nationals were very happy about the career that Steven Strasburg gave them, albeit I hope he does get healthy at some point. But he brought him a World Series, or he helped bring him a World Series. And he was very good. We obviously remember the infamous games with Steven Strasburg and his debut against the Pittsburgh Pirates. Paul Skenes was my pick, not necessarily from day one. I was very much a Dylan Cruz truther. I wanted Dylan Cruz and nobody else for a while because, yes, drafting pitching this high, especially number 1 overall, is a very scary thing to do with Tommy John surgery always being an option, injuries always being an option. But I just think Paul Skenes is too good and was too good to pass up here. And I guess Ben Cherington and company did too. I mean, you look at what this kid did in college, man. Sorry, I'm just so excited right now because I absolutely love this pick. I love this pick more than the Henry Davis pick. I love this pick more than the Termarr Johnson pick. This is my 3rd MLB draft with you guys here on the Locked On Pirates podcast. And by far, leaps and bounds, this is my favorite selection that the Pirates have made. 52 appearances for Paul Skenes in college. For those who may not know, of course, he did start his career at Air Force. He then transferred after his sophomore season for his junior year this past year to go to LSU. And Wes Johnson's coaching staff obviously brought a lot out of him. He was a 2-way player at Air Force. I will not bring up his hitting stats just because I don't think that having 1 full year off of hitting is going to translate to the major league level in any way. And we've already seen them kind of with the 2-way player scenario with Bubba Chandler. He's now a full-time pitcher as well. So I wouldn't exactly think that the Pirates flirt with this idea, but he is capable of doing it. But as far as pitching goes, man, he started 34 times in 52 appearances, 23-6, 2.18 ERA, 235 innings pitched, a 0.94 whip, 12.8 strikeouts per nine to 1.5 base on balls per nine. That is absurd. I know it's the college level, but you always hear about the aluminum bat syndrome. You always hear about that it makes hitters look better. Not against Paul Skenes. This past year, again, if you didn't get to watch him play, go back and watch the replay of any game that he pitched. Even his worst outing was probably very good. Career best 1.69 ERA and a 0.75 whip in 2023 for Paul Skenes, and a Division I leading 209 strikeouts. The kid is nuts, folks. He's very good. He's ridiculous. He also, to add to the accolades here, became the first pitcher to win Most Outstanding Player in the College World Series tournament and also go number 1 overall in the MLB first-year player draft. He also, along with teammate Dylan Cruz, they became the first tandem, I believe, in history from the same college to go 1-2. Jason Mackey also caught up with general manager Ben Cherington, who had this to say about Paul Skenes: whatever's next, he's going to want it. A combination of the pitcher on the field, the person off the field as we got to know him, just felt like the right match at the right time for the Pirates. And I agree 100%. I know Max Clark is going to probably have a very phenomenal career. Walker Jenkins is probably going to have a very, very good career. But for me, it was always Skenes, Cruz, Langford. Because although, and shout out to the Pirates, they did get the win today against Arizona to go into the All-Star break at 41-49. Disappointing after the start that they had. We'll talk about that a little bit more throughout the week. But they're right there. Doesn't it? It feels like, I mean, it might not feel like it right now, but you're still waiting on Eddie Rodriguez. You're still waiting on Jared Jones, who we'll get into shortly. You're still waiting on a lot of these pitchers. You then have Termarr Johnson, who will probably be up here in the next year and a half, 2 years. You're looking at O'Neal Cruz returning back from injury and hopefully taking his next step in the maturation of his career. You're looking at the young players that have made impacts this year, like the growth of Mitch Keller, Jared Triolo, Henry Davis, and Nick Gonzalez have all been big parts of this team as of late. You look at G1 Bay and Tucupita Marcano. They've been helpful this year. Rodolfo Castro has struggled a lot, but he's helped at times. Jack Sawinski has been very good. And I feel like that's what they were thinking with this pick with Paul Skenes, is that, one, the starting pitching has been gutted by injuries this year. Vince Velasquez and Rich Hill were not long-term options. We don't know what's happening with Roansy Contreras. I don't think Johan Oviedo is a starting pitcher for the long-term future. So insert Paul Skenes. His scouting grades via MLB Pipeline. My God, when I read this, I actually stopped myself from ever reading his grades, him, Dylan Cruz, or Langford, because I wanted to be surprised and have the same emotion that I have right now, which was just, am I reading this correctly? Because I've watched Skenes play. I've watched numerous LSU games this year when he was pitching. The kid is nuts. And his scouting grades on MLB Pipeline are even better. The fastball, 80 out of 80. By the way, as I like to teach people things, if you didn't know, 20 to 80 scale, usually 50 and above is what you're looking for. 50 is usually that average, and then once you get to 60, above average, 70, well above average, 80, excellent, pretty much. His fastball is an 80 grade fastball already. Already. That is his present day scouting grade. And via MLB Pipeline's little snippet about this. Skenes has averaged 98 miles per hour and hit 102 at LSU. Now, I did read some that he was pitching around 94 to 96 at Air Force, and then Wes Johnson and his coaching staff helped him elevate his velocity. The kid hit 102 at LSU, but to continue the quote, Skenes has averaged 98 miles per hour and hit 102 at LSU with the flat approach angle and carry on his heater, making it almost impossible to hit. That is from a person that is paid to scout players, saying that a fastball is almost impossible to hit. That is insane. And his fastball does elevate very well. I've watched it. It is nuts. So what about his other pitches, right? You know, sometimes you have the guys that have a really good fastball and don't really have the off speed. We've seen that a little bit with Luis Ortiz. He has a 70 grade slider, folks. A 70 grade slider. Oh my God. Dude, I'm so happy. I'm so happy. Jason Mackey, as I'm also getting updates about this, asked Ben Cherington about the Pirates letting Skenes hit. I guess what I would say about Paul is it doesn't seem like one should bet against him. It hasn't been our focus. I think we want to hopefully get Paul into the organization and get a sense of where he's at. So that to me basically says, yeah, he ain't going to hit. But the 70 grade slider, man, it's nuts. His slider becoming an 85 to 89 mile per hour beast under Wes Johnson and his coaching staff with sharp break and absurd swing and miss and chase rates. Yes, he had one of the best swing and miss and chase rates in all of Division I college baseball this past year. One of the best swing and miss and chase rates in his career all time at the Division I level. And the slider is a big part of that. It goes away from righties and in on lefties, and it's very, very good. His changeup's a 50. That's fine. The changeup's something that I think he'll work on a crap ton at the minor league level. And via MLB Pipeline, they still like it. His power changeup arrives at 88 to 93 miles per hour with fade and is a solid offering when he lands it in the strike zone. That has been one of his more inconsistent pitches. I put that in air quotes if you're on YouTube. But yeah, I would expect that the minor leagues, he obviously will ramp up. I don't really know if he's going to pitch this year at all, just because of the workload and the deep way that he went into the College World Series. I just truly don't know if it's something that he'll do. But once he does start pitching, I think they'll ramp him up, let him use the fastball. He'll use the fastball and the slider and absolutely torch minor league hitting. And then the changeup he'll throw in there, I think, a lot more to get that grade up from a 50 to, say, 60 or 70. Future for me, I'd say it'll probably meet the slider at some point, although the slider will probably get to an 80. The changeup, I think, can get up to like a 65, 70 grade pitch at some point. And by then, boy, oh boy, oh boy. Paul Skenes, some background, also from El Toro High School, which has produced Nolan Arenado and Matt Chapman. So it's a high school that is notorious for producing MLB talent already. But Skenes would be slated to become the first pitcher from the high school to make the major league level. So that's some little background on his high school career. And now for the fun part. I've really have loved the Pirates pitching prospects for quite some time now. And the reason that I wanted Skenes was because, as we've seen this year, you can never have enough pitching when you're a low-spending baseball team like the Pittsburgh Pirates. A lot of these guys, I mean, we've seen Luis Ortiz. We've seen Rowanzi. Those guys are here. Or kind of. They're in AAA right now, but they've been here. Johan Oviedo has played well, but I don't know if he's going to profile as a starter long term. But you go look and do this for yourself so that you don't think that I'm making this up. The Pittsburgh Pirates currently, go look at their MLB Pipeline prospect list right now. Top 30. It's the one I use all the time. I enjoy it. I use that, Fangraphs, and Baseball America. But use MLB Pipeline. It's free. You can read all about it. The future pitching rotation out, in my opinion. Now, obviously, these guys might not all pan out, but there's a very good chance that they do. You look at Mitch Keller. He's had a phenomenal year this year. Phenomenal year. He's an all-star for a reason. You insert Paul Skenes. I said it before and I'll say it again. I think he's immediately your number one prospect in your system. I think he jumps Termarr Johnson. Henry Davis is number 2. Andy Rodriguez is number 3. And you have Jared Jones, who has quietly been moving up the system very quickly, getting close to Quinn Priester. Then there's Quinn Priester, who's had his moments this year. He's been very off and on, but he's been pretty consistent as of late. Anthony Solometto, one of my favorite pitchers in the system, future left-handed pitcher for in the rotation for this team for a very long time, I think. JP Massey, who's had a very good year. He was in the futures game today. Bubba Chandler, who I mentioned earlier, two-way player. Now he's fully a pitcher. That's what I think they do with Skenes. Mike Burrows, get well soon, brother. Friend of the show. He was on the show. He's going to be very good, folks. We would have already saw him this year if he was healthy. Alongside Anthony Solometto at the lower levels of the system, Thomas Harrington, going to be very good. Hunter Barco, a forgotten name. I think he has potential. Kyle Nicholas, a guy that I've enjoyed ever since he entered this system in the trade for Jacob Stallings. Michael Kennedy, Braxton Ashcraft, Jung-Suk Shim. All of the names that I just mentioned, all of the names, outside of Mitch Keller, who is obviously graduated and long past prospect status, and Paul Skenes is not yet there, but obviously we're going to get an updated prospect ranking soon. Outside of Keller, 8 of those pitchers that I just mentioned, including Skenes, I'm including Skenes in this, will be featured in an updated top 15 prospects in the system for the Pittsburgh Pirates. The future is bright in Pittsburgh, folks. It really is. And I could not be more happy that they selected Skenes. I think it was the right decision. And I truly, is he generational? We'll find out. And even if he's not generational, say he's not, but say he turns into Mitch Keller. Say he turns into a Shane McClanahan, but from the right side. Pablo Lopez, you know? But just know that's his floor. He's going to be a very good pitcher, folks, that we're going to love to watch in Pittsburgh for a very long time. Him and Mitch Keller are going to make a dynamic duo at the top of that rotation whenever Skenes is ready, which I think is around 2025 fully. I think we could see him at the end of 2024 for a nice little cup of coffee at the major league level. But it'll be interesting. Does he pitch this year? Where does he start at the minor league level? Some scouts have said he could go into a major league bullpen, pitch 1 or 2 innings every couple days, and be arguably your best reliever. There's a ton of options for Paul Skenes and the Pittsburgh Pirates, but we now know you can breathe the sigh of relief that the Pittsburgh Pirates selected a potentially generational talent in Paul Skenes, number 1 overall in the 2023 MLB Draft. Guys, my name is Ethan Smith, your host of the Locked On Pirates podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Make sure you go watch Locked On MLB Prospects for all of their draft coverage with Lindsey Crosby. He's phenomenal. He was on the show Friday. Keep up with the draft. The Pirates still have a ton of selections left. They're going to obviously bring in a lot of good talent. But guys, have a beautiful Sunday night. I'll see you tomorrow with Gary. Thank you so much. Have a phenomenal evening. Paul Skenes, you are a Pittsburgh Pirate. Let's go. Thank you guys so much, and I'll see you on the flip side.